Can you read it out loud? Sure. It says, Dear Liam, happy 8th birthday. Mrs. Trump and I hope you enjoy this special occasion surrounded by the love of your family and friends. We are so encouraged by the strength and determination you have shown throughout your young life and send our love and best wishes to you as you continue to fight. Remember, you are never alone, and we are keeping you in our thoughts and prayers for continued care and good health. May God bless you and your family. Stay strong. Sincerely. Can you tell me who signed that? He knew it was your birthday coming up? What do you say to him? What else do we say?
The mainstream media has been ordered to continue demonizing ivermectin and urging people not to take it, even though major studies have proven that the Nobel Prize-winning wonder drug cures 28 forms of cancer. According to a Gates Foundation insider, ivermectin posed a threat to the massive financial success of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. And now it's challenging the trillion-dollar profits the elite stand to gain from the surge in turbo cancers due to the vaccines. This is crucial information, and it's vital that everyone understands the game the elite are playing, so they can't cause any more harm to our health. Before we dive in, join the People's Voice Locals community if you haven't already, and sign up to become a member of the world's first ever cyber nation that truly believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of your dreams. Visit joson.com and click the Join Us button today. It's completely free. The People's Voice invited whistleblowers from inside the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to come forward with their stories of abuse and corruption, and they've not disappointed. Former and current employees of Gates have revealed troubling evidence of widespread misconduct and cronyism within the foundation. They also shared how Gates uses his influence as a major supporter of media organizations and scientific research to control the mainstream agenda for his own benefit.
Look, I didn't want to do this, but I can't keep it in anymore. It came from the very top. Gates and the senior executives at the foundation, they made the call. They decided before the WHO even declared a pandemic to push the FDA to demonize ivermectin, even though we knew it swatted aside the virus like it was nothing. Why? Because they didn't want anything messing with the profits from the vaccines we were backing. The vaccine wouldn't have got emergency use authorization if there was an existing cure on the market. Plus, there is plenty of evidence that ivermectin cures cancer, and cancer is the new growth industry around the world for pharma companies. So they will never, ever allow it to gain mainstream attention. It will probably be completely banned in the next few years when the controversy blows over and they think they can get away with it. I went along with the whole anti-ivermectin thing, but now I just can't live with what we did. People suffered. They are still suffering, and it's on us, on Gates.
The medical establishment's suppression of ivermectin becomes even more damning, considering the findings of recent studies. World-leading oncologist Dr. William Mackis highlighted a major study confirming that ivermectin is effective in treating a vast array of cancers. The research, led by Dr. Mandy Juarez and her team in Mexico, tested ivermectin against 28 different types of cancer.
The work of the Biden administration, Dr. Fauci, we already have millions of kids around the country who have gotten vaccinated, which means that if you're still thinking about it, get informed, talk to somebody you trust, your family doctor, your pediatrician, a school nurse, get more information about it. They'll tell you it's safe, it's effective. This vaccine is tailored for kids, and then come on down and find a spot to get vaccinated. You can get it for free just by going to vaccine.gov. It'll tell you exactly where you can go to get vaccinated, and make sure to do it, as you said, for your kids, your entire family, as well as for the community at large.
That were taken from the arteries of a deceased today simply for us to be able to embalm them. We are going to dispose of them, but it's just to illustrate what we are finding inside the arteries of the vaccinated deceased in our care. This isn't normal. This doesn't grow post-mortem. It's time somebody got a backbone and some moral compass.
Following video is probably one of the most important that you will watch in today's world. Rafa Colvin from La Quinta, Columna, is looking at dental anesthetic at 100 times magnification. You will see the nanotechnology, microchips that self-assemble. We've already seen those in the Pfizer vaccine and other injectables. Rafa has dried out the sample for 30 days, and then he's looking at the sample under 100 times magnification. You will see hundreds of nanotechnology and microtech. Rafa then mixed 1 gram of tobacco in 5 cc's of distilled water and let it steep. He then puts a small amount of the tobacco in the water mix with the pipette onto a slide on top of the dental anesthetic. You can now see that the nanotech is totally destroyed by the nicotine mixture. Dr. Brian Ardis stated that nicotine was the very thing that could destroy nanotechnology. Rafa has confirmed exactly that. Please share this video everywhere. We are now looking at how we can deliver nicotine in the correct dosage in a liposomal form, just like the liposomal and microsomal that we use on the EDTA, which obviously gets rid of the spike protein, shedding, that helps with back syndrome. This is life-changing. So to confirm again, what you're seeing here is nicotine steeped in distilled water being placed on dental anesthetics, and you can literally see the nanotechnology dissolve, be destroyed and dispersed. Obviously, putting this on any platform puts us in danger, as we know, but somebody has to show the solutions to these pollutions. And we are a team, microscopists, don't want to make money out of anybody. We want to give you free solutions. We're not affiliated to tobacco industry or nicotine, but obviously you need nicotine in its purest form. Tobacco in the tobacco industry obviously put harmful substances in that. So you need tobacco at its purest form and nicotine at its purest form. So watch this space on liposomal, on microsomal nicotine.
This talk. It's Friday the 6th of September. Now, I've heard about this phenomena years ago, of course, but only just got some evidence to support it, so we can only just report on it now. This is from peer-reviewed literature, and it's scientists based in Japan and South Korea. And what they've done is they've taken COVID vaccines, mostly Pfizer and Moderna, and cultured them, incubated them, to try and duplicate the conditions in the human body, and they've found nanostructures have developed. Now, I don't expect you're going to watch this video or be allowed to watch this video, but I'm going to do it anyway. And if by some chance a few of you actually get to see it, then that's brilliant. Now, here's the equipment that was actually used here. It's stereo microscopes. Now, basically, all this means is you're looking at it with two eyes, therefore you get stereoscopic vision. And what happened was that initially they developed two-dimensional nanostructures, and then some became three-dimensional as well. And of course, you can see that with a stereoscopic microscope. Let's go and look at some now. That was the equipment that they were using. And of course, these days, you don't so much look down the microscope, it all goes on a screen, so you can take copies of it. Now, these are from the publication. These are some of the nanostructures that were observed in, as I've said before, conditions that were designed to duplicate human cells in the human body that developed from the COVID vaccines, the mRNA vaccines. Now, the scale here, we'll look, well, I'll just show you a couple of pictures and we'll look at the scale. So these are the sort of structures that they were finding. I mean, what the heck is that? You know, that is a structure that spontaneously sort of put itself together, a spontaneous assembly of this structure from the COVID vaccine cultures. Now, the scale here, 10 micrometers. So that's, so one micrometer would be, the size of a sort of a bacterial cell. 7 micrometers would be the size of a red blood cell. So you can see these are nanostructures, but this is a very detailed looking structure that has spontaneously assembled itself here. Really quite, yeah, well, look at it. You know, that spontaneously assembled itself. What the heck is it? Now, of course, as always, we don't have, I won't be giving full answers to these questions. Read the paper for yourself. But this means the presence of these nanostructures needs to be explained by the manufacturers and by international authorizing agencies and national authorizing agencies around the world. This is a peer-reviewed publication, and I believe it gives questions to be answered.
Health Canada apparently has issued a market withdrawal of the COVID-19 XBB vaccines in Canada to take place on September 1st, 2024. They want to withdraw all the products as part of the regulatory process to authorize the approval of Pfizer and Moderna's regulatory submission of KP2. There's speculation that they're being destroyed.
Top scientist Dr. Dennis Rancourt claims that the COVID vaccines have killed 13 million people worldwide. In May, it's estimated that 200,000 illegals crossed the southern border into the U.S., and thousands of those were military-age Chinese men. Does China have a standing army on U.S. soil, just waiting for their signal to strike? U.S. intelligence agencies are censoring and jailing patriotic citizens without any due process. Think January 6th Commission. Sadly, all of this stuff would have never happened if not for the Obama-era Smith-Mundt Modernization Act in 2012. In Section 208, Part B, relating to domestic distribution of program materials, it says nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit the Department of State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors from engaging in any medium or form of communication, either directly or indirectly, because a United States domestic audience is or may be thereby exposed to program materials. The term program material is government doublespeak for propaganda. The SMMA, as it's known, was buried within the annual National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2013, and it was passed into public law on January 2nd, 2013. So why is H.R. 5736 so dangerous? Well, both the Smith-Mundt Act of 1947 and the Foreign Relations Act of 1988 were passed to protect the American public from government propaganda campaigns, and the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 does exactly the opposite. It also creates one hell of a slippery slope. Heavy censorship clears the way for the spread of propaganda in a society. The Nazis, the Russians, the Chinese, the US were and are well aware of this fact. These countries possess the most effective, comprehensive, and institutionalized systems of propaganda and censorship in history. The CIA is prohibited under federal law from engaging in any activities for the purpose of affecting or interfering with the domestic political process, and yet they do. The DNI lists 18 intelligence agencies in the US. They have at their disposal hundreds of thousands of spies, criminals, analysts, IT personnel, bean counters, and paper shufflers. And with all that manpower, they supercharge it with a $60 billion yearly budget. It is the most well-financed and well-staffed propaganda machine in history. Now, in December of 2022, the Daily Mail says a large number of ex-officers from the FBI, CIA, NSC, and State Department have taken positions at Facebook, Twitter, Google. These are intelligence operatives who censor the truth on a regular basis and disseminate the lies that are handed down by the US government, thanks to the abolishment of the original Smith-Mundt Act of 1947. There is a Facebook video of the president's former briefer at the CIA, Aaron Berman, expounding on how he is the manager for the team that writes the rules for Facebook. Deborah Berman, former intelligence analyst at the CIA, now works as a trust and safety manager for Meta, and I'm thinking that they're brother and sister or husband and wife. Any wonder why the truth is always censored? Jacqueline Lepore, the former go-to writer at the CIA, works intelligence collections at Google. Nick Rosman, ex-FBI and ex-CIA agent, serves as the senior management of trust and safety at Google. And the list goes on and on. If the original legislation hadn't been completely overturned by the 2012 Modernization Act, then the witch hunts like the Clinton-funded fake dossier and the Trump Russia collusion Mueller sham investigation would never have happened, and it wouldn't have been able to tear America apart. The torrents of lies that pour from the talking heads on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News would have been immediately pulled from the air. Political propaganda bomb throwers like Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Mike Pence, George Bush, Hillary Clinton, Sleepy Joe, Obama would have been jailed and brought up on charges of sedition. There would have been no Obamacare because he couldn't get on national TV and say, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. You see, these are all parts of propaganda. Also, there would have never been any shutdowns or mask mandates or dangerous COVID vaccines that slaughtered millions of people and made the government and big pharma extremely wealthy beyond imagination. Anthony Fauci would have never been able to get up in front of the media and spew his lies for years on end. The Hunter Biden laptop story would have never been buried by the three-letter departments, and his corrupt father would never have been the Democratic presidential nominee. And if that didn't happen, then we wouldn't have been embroiled in this trillion-dollar money laundering scheme over in Ukraine and teetering on the brink of World War III and an absolute annihilation of the planet. Little white lies can be harmless, but enormous psyops, government-created and disseminated lies, program material, propaganda, pits family against family, neighbor against neighbor, and friends against friends. It is a cancer that has been used by every oppressive government since the dawn of time. Propaganda mutilates a country from within, so leaders can then rob it blind and make themselves kings. It is inconceivable how we have allowed our nation to become this bastion of socialism and corruption. The parasites are running the animal. Unless we are willing to take this very bitter medicine that solves that problem, then those parasites in the form of politicians will kill this once great nation known as the United States of America, and then proceed to depopulate the planet by 7.5 billion people.
The greatest perpetrator of misinformation during the pandemic has been the United States government. Misinformation that COVID was spread through surface transmission, that vaccinated immunity was far greater than natural immunity, that masks were effective. Now we have the definitive Cochrane review. What do you do with that review? Cochrane is the most authoritative evidence body in all of medicine and has been for decades. Do you just ignore it, not talk about it? That myocarditis was more common after the infection than the vaccine. Not true. It's 4 to 28 times more common after the vaccine. That young people benefit from a booster. Misinformation. Our two top experts on vaccines quit the FDA in protest over this particular issue, pushing boosters in young, healthy people. The data was never there. That's why the CDC never disclosed hospitalization rates among boosted Americans under age 50. The vaccine mandates would increase vaccination rates. The George Mason University study shows it didn't. It did one thing. It created never vaxxers who are now not getting the childhood vaccines they need to get. Over and over again, we've seen something that goes far beyond using your best judgment with the information at hand. We've seen something which is unforgivable, and that is the weaponization of medical research itself. The CDC putting out their own shoddy studies, like their own study on natural immunity, looking at one state for 2 months, when they had data for years on all 50 states. Why did they only report that one sliver of data? Why did they salami slice the giant database? Because it gave them the result they wanted. Same with masking study. Well, the data has now caught up in giant systematic reviews, and the public health officials were intellectually dishonest. They lied to the American people. Thank you.
PSA for anyone going to the grocery store. Next time you're in the produce aisle, please be on the lookout for this label. And whatever you do, do not go near it. Appeal, or EdAppeal, is a World Economic Forum and Bill Gates funded product that is being sprayed on fruits and vegetables, which are on the verge of spoiling, so that they appear fresh and last longer. Even more frightening is the fact that Appeal has been approved for use on USDA organic produce under the name OrganAppeal. The main ingredient found in the Appeal coating is mono and diglycerides, which are extracted from grapeseed oil. This is then processed with the use of two solvents, which are ethyl acetate and heptane, both of which are hazardous chemicals known to seriously damage internal organs in the case of repeated exposure. This coating cannot be washed off. PSA for anyone going to the grocery store. Next time.
Good teachers. There has to be some good teachers left, right? Right. But to find the schools and teachers who aren't embracing this woke revolution, you have to be involved and not be afraid to ruffle a few feathers by asking questions. You're a teacher who refused the transgender ideology at your school, and in return, you were fired, and the school refused to accommodate your religious beliefs. How did that make you feel?
It felt surreal, and it still does, honestly. You could have never told me that I would spend 7 years going to college to become a teacher, live out my dream, impacting and influencing, the next generations, only to 6 years into my career be let go of because according to my school district, they could not accommodate my religious beliefs. So that's where it gets really interesting, because it started with, as you mentioned, the transgender policies that were placed on me. These policies they presented me really essentially are wrapped around lying. So lying to students first and foremost, because they've asked me to call children by whatever they want to be called by, whatever gender, pronoun it is, I have to go along with that. And so if you really think about that, right, that is lying to a child because they're confused. And as adults, we're supposed to step in and guide them, on the path of success and prosperity and hope and positivity, and to go along with the lies that they're experiencing, that would not be, in my eyes, doing my job. And so it was so bizarre for the district to say, no, you have to keep your job, you have to go along with it.
So to be very clear, the policy was, if you have a student and they say that they go by ZZim or clown self, which is a real pronoun that some people use, you had to call them that.
Correct. And it gets worse than that too. When they presented that policy to me, that I had to, they said, refer and respect students' gender preference or pronouns. That was in writing. And they then said vocally, you also need to withhold that from parents. And I looked the superintendent, assistant superintendent, like dead in the eye. And I said, "Are you asking me to lie to parents?" And he said, "Yes."
The problem.
Have come out about the hydroxy. A lot of good things have come out. And you'd be surprised at how many people are taking it, especially the frontline workers, before you catch it. The frontline workers, many are taking it. I happen to be taking it.
Hydroxychloroquine.
I'm taking it, hydroxychloroquine. Right now, yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I started taking it. Because I think it's good. I've heard a lot of good stories. And if it's not good, I'll tell you right. I'm not going to get hurt by it. It's been around for 40 years for malaria, for lupus, for other things. I take it. Frontline workers take it. A lot of doctors take it. Excuse me. A lot of doctors take it. I take it. Yeah, I hope to not be able to take it soon because, I hope they come up with some answer. But I think people should be allowed to. I got a letter from a doctor the other day from Westchester, New York, around the area. He didn't want anything. He just said, "Sir, I have hundreds of patients and I give them hydroxychloroquine. I give them the Z-Pak, which is zithromycin, and I give them zinc. And out of the hundreds of patients, many hundreds, over 300 patients, I haven't lost one." He said, "Please keep pressing that, sir." And if you look at that phony report that was put in, that report on the hydroxy was given to people that were in extraordinarily bad condition. Extraordinarily bad. People that were dying. No, I think for whatever it's worth, I take it. I would have told you that 3-4 days ago, but we never had a chance because you never asked me the question.
Did the White House doctor recommend that you take that? Is that why you're taking
Yeah, White House doctor didn't recommend. No, I asked him, "What do you think?" He said, "Well, if you'd like it." I said, "Yeah, I'd like it. I'd like to take it." A lot of people are taking. A lot of frontline workers are taking hydroxychloroquine. A lot of I don't take it because, hey, people said, "Oh, maybe he owns the company." No, I don't own the company. You know what? I want the people of this nation to feel good. I don't want them being sick. And there's a very good chance that this has an impact, especially early on. But you look at frontline workers, you look at a book about Fauci. There's 2,200 footnotes in the book, and I invited people at the beginning of the book. All of my sources in the books are. I did something that had never been done before, which I put them on a barcode next to them, so you can actually, as you read, you can look up the sourcing. And I invited people to find problems with the book. I said, "Tell me what they are, and we will correct them." We had 27 editions, so we had the capacity to correct anything. And nobody ever told us any actual error in that book. And if you read that book, it's hard to, I don't look into Anthony Fauci's head. I don't look into Bill Gates' head. I don't say he did this because he was greedy or because he was manipulative. I just lay out what they did, and the story speaks for itself. And, it's a story of people involved in really terrible, immoral, homicidal, criminal behavior. And using a position in government that he had for 50 years without any election, to clamp down these totalitarian controls that were not science-based and that everybody now admits there was no science. In fact, yesterday, the chief attorney for FDA admitted that there was no reason He admitted because he lost the case in court against the doctor, but there was no reason to discourage people from taking ivermectin. Ivermectin was a very, very devastating cure for COVID. It literally obliterated COVID. And, by depriving people of ivermectin, many people, millions of people around the globe died. And they didn't need to. There were cures for COVID from day one, and very effective cures. But they didn't want that. They wanted the vaccine only. And there's a rule, a little known federal rule that they were all aware of, which said that you cannot issue an emergency use authorization for a vaccine if there is an existing remedy that has already been approved for any use. So if they admitted that hydroxychloroquine or famotidine or ivermectin or any of the 25 existing therapeutic drugs that were very effective against COVID, if they admitted that any of them were effective, the whole vaccine project would have fallen apart. They couldn't have done it. And so they decided that they were going to pretend that there was no cure except for the vaccine. And they gave people a product that was not properly tested, and that now we have a whole generation of kids that has now, got myocarditis, these terrible heart problems in young athletic boys. You're seeing so many kids now drop dead on playing fields, and that we never saw anything like this before. On average, it was, I think, 29 a month globally, athletes who died on the field. And we were getting down to hundreds a month now. And it's, and there still has to be a reckoning. The mainstream media hasn't caught up with the science. But the science is out there now, and it's devastating.
Ahead and move on to our presentation from Maria Zach. And this is talking about the elections. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Maria Zach from Nations in Action, and we are an organization that's devoted to transparent government, transformative politicians, trustworthy parties, and truthful media. The Italian Secret Service actually received information from Arturo's girlfriend, he considers wife because they've been together so long. Her uncle is part of the Italian intelligence services. She said, Uncle, Arturo came home and said he doesn't understand why we're stealing America's election. They immediately go to Leonardo and investigate. Arturo confesses. The Italian intelligence services reach out to us November 18th. They said something happened. We're watching a coup d'etat in the United States of America. They were fearful of meeting with anyone. There were 2 affidavits that were delivered into Congress, and they were delivered from Italian citizens that contacted us. Intelligence agencies had been trying to reach out because their country had already fallen. And that is what is happening around the world. The intelligence agencies are watching corruption and China come in to their countries and buying off politicians and hiding things and using fraud to do amazing efforts to take over and own property and, in some instances, countries. So today I'm going to play for you an audio tape that should shock you all. It'll shock America. This is the first place I have chosen to testify in. I could have walked into any state. I know my way around. We've already proven my credentials. I know government affairs. I can walk in, and when I play this for you, and why Kansas? Because Kansas was a pro-Trump victor of electors. But I would argue you don't know. You do not know the real result of your election. You also probably have not been made aware of what was occurring in Italy. Leonardo, the defense contracting firm, had some strange occurrences happening with people coming in and out that the intelligence services witnessed of people coming from Frankfurt into the Italian US embassy in Rome on Via Veneto. This instance enabled individuals to come forward and supposedly, according to the Italian intelligence services, work with Leonardo to change the results of the United States election. But more frightening is that they claim there were 47 to 52 presidential elections around the world, and they now have telemetry experts, over 200, that speak foreign languages that are all different. So what you are dealing with is a very calculated attempt to take down presidencies and control countries. So this audio that I am about to play for you is from an individual who was a member of the CIA and the State Department. His name is Larry Johnson. Many of you may not know, but I am the person not only who hand-delivered that letter to Donald Trump on Christmas Eve in 2020, telling him who stole the election, where they stole it, and how they stole it. And my number one goal was to bring back one of the people who was in the satellite center. His name was Arturo Delia. My goal was to rescue him and bring him over to America because he was willing to testify. There were people that would not assist, that I thought would assist, but what was most shocking was this voice recording that I will play now.
Hi, Larry Johnson. We spoke yesterday. Listen, I needed to see if you would help us get in touch with the lawyer, because actually talked to him yesterday. He went missing. We have people in Italy now and are ready to have the person that's in jail. We've got a national security team that can extradite him and bring him back safely to the United States. So that's already lined up. There's no need for an airplane. The airplane is going to be provided and witness protection provided. If you can call me at your convenience, 301-442-5957.
That's our United States government, supposedly, national security, that are going to go rescue Arturo Delia. Anyone know about that? Probably not. Anyone? Because most Americans had this truth hidden from them, that there was an operation, supposedly, but the number one thing that they were looking for in the beginning of that message was where the lawyers were and the people who did the affidavits who were being hunted to be killed. These are brave people around the world that are trying to tell the truth and having great difficulty with the United States government apparatus. Telling the truth is not easy, and people are risking their lives. So that was the transcript. So you ask, okay, what proof is there? Well, I would definitely consider that, sir, Mr. Chairman and members. That is called proof. That needs an investigation. Where is our law enforcement? It should be at the local, state, and federal levels immediately to investigate Larry Johnson and the activities that he did in the United States during this whole event. You know, everyone says, if you see something, say something, right? We're all supposed to see something, say something, and then what happens? You get blasted. We had patterns of illegal activity across the country. We had people not matching signatures on the ballots. We had witnesses galore filling out affidavits. I'm so proud of the team at Nations in Action because they filed many, many, many affidavits. They saw the computers actually online and there are photographs. So if anyone says the machines weren't online, that is false. So these witnesses that have come forward have also identified over 35,000 illegal cross-county voting just in Georgia alone. And that relates to President Trump's talk with Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, where he was saying, I know that there are votes there that were illegally cast. He was right. He is actually vindicated in the proof today because the cross-reference with the state documents and the U.S. Postal Service feed shows that these people did not live where they actually voted. Those votes should have never been counted. Now we have illegal votes that are cast using fake residences and business addresses, photocopied identical ballots and stacks fed into tabulators, and many fake, unfolded, unmailed absentee ballots. of the thousands of affidavits just filed in Georgia alone, would you like to know how many arrests were made? Zero. Zero. All those great citizens who we ask to do us a favor and help us do our right to vote, to go and volunteer to work polls, had no assistance at all in having a free and fair election, and they witnessed the failures of America. So now you should be asking me, who are the people in Italy, Maria? Who are they that actually coordinated and conspired? Because this is where we really break things down and show you the proof of what occurred. Stefano Serafini on your left is actually a member of our State Department who retired just days before the election. It is said that he, in an intercept, it was picked up that he was retiring so he wouldn't lose his pension should he be caught. He was coordinating with General Claudio Graziano. General Graziano is also at the time was the EU commander. And they were meeting across the street at the St. Regis Hotel. And it was with Ignazio Moncada, who is the CEO of Fatah, which is Fatah SPA, which is a subsidiary of Leonardo, one of the largest defense contracting firms in the world. They are the largest in Italy, and they receive numerous United States military and intelligence contracts. That should frighten everybody right now. Now, they were meeting in his hotel, and in March of 2020, they were coordinating this plan. The Italian intelligence services actually provided me with the cell phone number for the go order, and it goes to General Graziano. So then you ask, well, they concoct the plan. They have to go get the IT guys. Who's going to do it? Well, they already had a guy. His name is Charles Robinson. He is a telemetry expert. He came in a week prior to the election of November 2020. He uploaded mil-spec software, and he had traveled from Frankfurt. He was working in there with Arturo D'Elia. He is an IT guru in Italy. He's known as the smartest. The Italian Secret Service actually received information from Arturo's girlfriend, he considers wife because they've been together so long. Her uncle is part of the Italian intelligence services. She said, Uncle, Arturo came home and said he doesn't understand why we're stealing America's election. They immediately go to Leonardo and investigate. Arturo confesses. What they don't know, what Arturo doesn't know and anyone else, the Italian intelligence services, with the help of the Finanza Guardia, were conducting the investigation, and they said they were there to check for financial fraud. So they were checking all the other employees saying, hey, you got anything? What's going on around here? Any financial fraud? And one guy was a little nervous and he said, I don't have financial fraud, but something strange happened in the satellite center I'd like to confess. There was actually a second person in his name we had named Beta. Beta confessed to the Italian Secret Service, corroborating the entire story that Arturo D'Elia told to the intelligence services of Italy. This is Arturo. Arturo was hiding in the facility for 18 days while I tried to rescue him. I am just a citizen. I'm not agency. I shouldn't have to go do this for my country, but I will bleed for my country. And I had an opportunity to bring the witness and try to rescue him before he would be murdered leaving Italy. For 18 days, we hid him. And I personally funded and took money out of my retirement to do this. I can tell you that I was at the last straw, made a recommendation in the beginning of December to drop an article in Italy because I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't get to anyone. And I have 30 years of experience, and I had to wonder, why is it that a lot of the elected officials I went to are so afraid of me coming out with this information? It didn't matter if they were Democrats or Republicans because I know everyone. I know Stacey Abrams. I know Brian Kemp. I know them all, and they have known me for years, and they have known me to be a very honest person. I will bleed for my country, and I will not cover for my party or any individual that I consider a friend. because we are at war, and that is what America deserves. So I dropped the recommendation and strategy to drop the article in Italy. The day the article dropped, all hell broke loose in Italy. They immediately put out for the arrest of Arturo Delia, and they arrested and jailed him. They fired their head of cyber security for the country, and they fired the head of telecom for the country. Oh, just on one day when I dropped one little article. Isn't that amazing? I'm sure that's just totally pure coincidence. So the timeline, we did an extensive timeline of what was occurring as this was happening. We knew that the meetings were taking place from March of 2020 and then into the summer. November, the first week in November, the crew arrived to the US Embassy. There were data thrusts during the election because they said they couldn't keep up with all the votes and switching them. It was through the use of the Galileo satellite that was taken offline to load the mil-spec software. And let me make it very clear. I also own an IT company. I have friends who are both SEAL Team 6 former members that are communications and IT specialists. You have a document in your folder that explains how the satellites can be used. There are many methods. Anyone get Dish Network? Anyone get satellite TV? It's the same thing. So I'm going to make it real easy for you because I'll tell you, IT can be a bit complex. And so they loaded the software, they used it. Arturo goes home and tells his significant other. The Italian intelligence services reach out to us November 18th. They said something happened. We're watching a coup d'etat in the United States of America. They were fearful of meeting with anyone. The Italian government heads changed and did the arrests of the Sparkle Telecom and CERT. And then the CIA operatives fled immediately from the embassy the same day as the article dropping. That is not coincidence. This is one of the gentlemen, if you notice the sneaker, same guy. That picture is from the United States Rome Embassy. Nobody can get that picture unless you're Italian intelligence services. The camera is super high up. It is a secured facility, secured item. They sent me that photo. They were sending me documents and sending me photos because they knew there was nobody in the United States Rome Embassy that they could trust. And that is a sad, sad, sad day for America to wake up to this reality. It is not partisan, I will remind everyone. This is a whole different operation and a whole different war we are fighting. These are the other operatives that were fleeing on that day. They told the ticket agent that they were returning back to Frankfurt, which confirmed everything. Leonardo actually had their facility, their secure facility for all of their cloud services in Frankfurt, and they recently moved it. But at the time, it was in Frankfurt. They're also looking at renaming Leonardo and breaking it into pieces as we speak. Sound familiar? Maybe something that used to be called Facebook? But then we have the gentleman in the center. There's a gentleman with a very large bicep. And you would say, why do we care about that gentleman's bicep? We care a lot about that gentleman because that gentleman is out of Canada. He is not an American, he is Canadian. These gentlemen, this one in particular, we received a tip immediately that this gentleman, Charles Robinson, had confessed to stealing races in Arizona as early 2000, including Janet Napolitano's race for governor. He returned back to Canada with a brand new sports car and confessed to a fellow coworker while he was working at one point for Dominion. Then he was not working for Dominion. Then he went back to Dominion, and then he left and was working for another company. This gentleman has an extraordinary large bicep. He's very well known by this source. This source worked with Canadian law enforcement who seemed to be a lot more willing than our federal agencies. And they started tracking the gentleman. The sources claim that this is the guy who is so brilliant as a telemetry expert that he was able to load the software and change the votes. He now has 3 women, and there are people hunting him because people have followed my work. And sadly, some of them have done things that are, in my opinion, treasonous. They have gone to Italy under the guise of collecting money to go do an investigation on Italy. And they've taken this information and gone and gotten massages, rented villas, and they've also gotten people inspired to go hunt this guy down, as well as Stefano Serafini from the US Embassy. Serafini is still in Italy. He does not return to his McLean, Virginia home because he knows there are Americans looking for him. In my opinion, that was very wrong to incite Americans to go after and hunt these people. But Americans are desperate for politicians and law enforcement to do something. So I beg of you to work with law enforcement and make something happen after this presentation, because there's too much proof to not have it happen. Now for Alexander Nix. That name should be familiar to all of you. He was very involved in races in 2016 and prior. He was involved in the Cruz campaign. He was involved in the Trump campaign. And he was fined and part of the use of people's data from Facebook, a huge, massive fine that Mark Zuckerberg had to pay. And I always found it odd. Why would Mark Zuckerberg be working with the IT guy from Cambridge Analytica out of London, and yet they're working to help Republicans? That doesn't seem to make sense because Mr. Zuckerberg seems to be on the other side. Well, the Italian intelligence services immediately started giving me downloads on all the people, including sending me their picture and phone numbers out of their phones, showing and verifying that they not only knew who they were, they had relationships. One person actually drove Alexander Nix to the CEO's office at Leonardo in Italy. Now, you must ask yourself, why would an IT guy who has a voter technology actually be going to a defense contracting firm in Italy? Doesn't make sense, does it? No, it doesn't. And so you have to ask, okay, so Alexander Nix, is he MI6 like the Italian intelligence services says? Was he in meetings in America with CISA, the security association that was ensuring our elections? I am told that he was actually given permission and attendance of our election integrity and security meetings in the United States federal government as late as October of 2020. And he is a British citizen. He is not American, and he ran an IT company as his cover called Cambridge Analytica, where there are movies by Brittany Kaiser and others, Chris Wiley, who are 2 very liberal Democrats who came out, they saw something and they said something. And these people know something is wrong, and they have written books, and I highly recommend reading those. So while this was going on, the Italian intelligence services started telling me how things were breaking down in Italy, and the Italian government was going to collapse. I am not one who's ever received an intelligence briefing in my life. I was a lobbyist, state lobbyist. You know many of people just like me. And so all of a sudden I'm being told that Joe Biden called Matteo Renzi, who was the former prime minister prior to the collapse of the government. And he said, I need you to take down Giuseppe Conte as the prime minister. Within 3 weeks, Giuseppe Conte was down and Italy was in total chaos. That is proof that the intel intercepts that I was receiving were factual. Now, Conte was not real happy about going down, but he was given millions of dollars, we were told, in a California bank. These are banking issues as well. There were movements and pallets of cash, including the information that I supplied to Special Counsel John Durham. You're the first government agency that I am making this very clear to everyone. John Durham is in possession of documents from me that include the moving of pallets of cash by Barack Obama through the Dubai embassy. Our United States government CIA agent was present. $400 million were moved from there with the help of Italians, and the Finanza Guardia in Italy knows. And they supplied the names of the people in the room. And now we need you to get your United States senators and your congressional delegation, and I don't care what party they are, and they need to work together, because stealing from the American families in Kansas is wrong. And they stole $400 million and put it in the Merrill Lynch in Geneva, Switzerland. That is evidence that is sitting before us today. This story gets worse and more horrifying for the citizens of Kansas and America. So we knew that the plot was going to continue. They were going to try to kill Arturo Delia. We knew that they were chasing the Italians that were helping us. They have been threatened. They have been in car chases. They have had their cars roll over and people injured. And there have been many Italians who have been murdered. 5 government officials in March alone were murdered, including an ambassador. A brand new appointment to the cabinet was murdered the very day he was appointed. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor for questions.
Okay, do we have questions?
You gave us a lot. It's awful hard to grasp everything all you're saying, and a lot of it's very new for us.
Yes, sir.
Going to Italy and Leonardo, if I understanding what you're saying is that satellite there can send the codes, and they can affect and change elections, not only in the United States, but around the world. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Zuckerberg's letter went further than what he told Joe Rogan in 2022, because he specifically mentioned Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas company that Hunter Biden worked for. Zuckerberg wrote, "The FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. Nobody at the FBI has gone to prison or even been properly investigated for their crimes. And yet the evidence shows that the CIA and FBI broke the Wiretap Act and the Hatch Act of 1939, which prohibits federal employees from using their official authority or influence to interfere with or affect the outcome of an election. First, the FBI violated the Wiretap Act when it misused information it had obtained from spying on Rudy Giuliani. The FBI knew that the New York Post story about the Hunter Biden laptop would be coming out because it was listening to Giuliani's telephone calls. The Wiretap Act, formerly known as Title III of the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968, requires that information obtained through a wiretap can only be used for purposes directly related to the investigation for which the wiretap was authorized. Misusing or improperly disclosing this information can result in criminal penalties for the individuals involved, and the evidence obtained can be excluded from court proceedings. The FBI both misused and improperly disclosed the information. Second, the FBI spread disinformation, information it knew to be false, in order to interfere in the election. The FBI warned Facebook, Twitter, and others that forthcoming information about Burisma and Biden was Russian disinformation. The FBI knew that the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't Russian disinformation because it already had the laptop in its possession for 10 months and was spying on Giuliani. The FBI knew that the laptop was what it appeared to be, something obtained by a computer repair store owner after Hunter Biden brought it in and never came back for it.
Would you rather have a democracy or access to abortions?
Either or. feel like that's a very tough question to answer. I feel like that's almost not possible to answer. I feel like I couldn't pick one or the other.
Even if you had to choose?
I had to choose.
Can we get a final answer? I know it's hard.
I guess access to abortions.
The reasons that I left the agencies is they have this plan that if you do not believe that the government is God, then you would go to one of these processing centers briefly. If you could be re-educated, they would do that. Although there isn't much need for humans, that the globalists really are free to admit that there's no room for humans anymore. It's our duty to expire so that to make the planet, to atone for our sins, basically, of what we've done to the planet. And so you will basically be killed. And there are two different humane methods of killing. And one of those is gassing, and the other method is decapitation. And they've been doing all these experiments, decapitating thousands and thousands of mice, recording their brain waves, all of that, to justify decapitation as a humane method of euthanizing people.
You're talking about guillotines.
Guillotines, yes. And if you think that there's no evidence, so back in between 2000 and 2005, I collected a lot of military documents, such as, because they were really studying the issue of guillotines and how to build a better guillotine, this type of thing. So I have those documents.
So just to translate this, are you saying that people, as they're facing starvation because of the collapse of the food supply, will turn themselves into the FEMA camps? They'll be processed, registered, probably, microchipped, right? Whatever they're gonna do, they need to do to track you. And then at some point, you'll be sorted out into one of two groups, like a group of maybe people that they might be able to use, and then the people that they've got to get rid of, and you're just going to be led into a guillotine and decapitated, and that's it? That's actually how FEMA is going to process people?
Have you ever seen the movie Sophie's School?
No.
So this is about a young girl and her brother. She was probably 18, and they were passing out anti-Hitler propaganda. This is a true story. It's called The White Rose, and they were caught when they passed some anti-Hitler propaganda out at the college, and they had a puppet trial, and they were executed. And I believe that every person in America needs to see Sophie's School. It is on YouTube. It is free. It will prepare you for what's coming.
To lie about something so obvious. He said it was a Muslim burial at sea. Nonsense. And so this big lie that you see, Biden, Hillary, and Clinton worked this agreement with Iran. They trusted Iran to move bin Laden to Pakistan. He did. He was there. But then they trusted Iran to keep him there. They moved him out back to Iran. And then the communication from Iran to Obama was, hey, we got your neck in a noose. Give us all this money. $152 billion, $2 billion on an airplane pallet was paid out for the secrets I wish to reveal now and to the president under the terms of misprision and treason. That is to say, this is a secret. These are secrets worth $152 billion paid by President Obama. And Vice President Biden paid
with the blood of SEAL Team 6 when he had them killed.
It says blackmail and extortion.
Blackmail and extortion.
Yeah,
Iran commandeered.
You have the documents to
Yes. Yes.
Now,
Iran. Yes, sir.
I was going to ask you, if you have those documents, are you willing to personally deliver those to President Trump if he were to provide the transportation and the guarantee of safety for you to do that?
Well, I'm not concerned about safety. There's always an invisible hand that protects us, and we're on the winning team. America's on the winning team.
Not one sparrow falls to the ground outside of God's will.
It would be my pleasure and my honor to bring this material to President Trump. There's a massive amount, terabytes, documents, video, audio. It needs to go to the president.
I will do everything that I can to get this video.
Actually, I had quite an illustrious career, 27 and a half years in the FBI. And in those 27 and a half years, I had 13 assignments. So I moved around the country. The only part of the country I never did live in was really the extreme Northeast U.S. So also during my career, I handled just about everything. I was counter-espionage, counter-terrorism in New York and Connecticut. And I negotiated with some skyjackers at Philadelphia International Airport for 2.5 hours, July the 12th, 1972. And I ended up being in charge of most of Southern California, had over 700 personnel under my command. I personally investigated the Oklahoma City bombing case, huge cover-up, Jack Kennedy's assassination, huge cover-up, Bobby Kennedy's assassination, huge cover-up, World Trade Center, huge cover-up. Okay, terrorism. They're using it as an excuse to take away our constitutional rights and our civil liberties. The Bilderbergs, I'm Ted L. Gunderson, 27-year veteran of the FBI, who retired in March of 1979. At the time when I retired, I was the senior special agent in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Division, with more than 700 personnel under my command and a budget of $22.5 million. I was an agent on the streets for 9.5 years, and then I advanced administratively. I was a supervisor, and then I was number 2 man in Connecticut and Philadelphia, and assistant special agent in charge was the title. And then I became a chief inspector, and then I was agent in charge in Memphis, Dallas, and the senior special agent in charge in Los Angeles, because I had 3 other special agents in charge under me and 24 supervisors under them. I have information chiseled in stone, documented, that the FBI had advanced knowledge about 911 and did nothing to prevent this from occurring. And this is atrocious. It's unbelievable, having been a former FBI agent myself. And it's very obvious that this whole thing has been orchestrated by the powers that be at the highest level of our government. And I want the world to know about it.
She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. She and my father
really important. Let's get back to this, okay? Established citizens, doctors, attorneys, businessmen, teachers will be recruited into social crusaders for the political group the CIA is promoting to topple the government in a paramilitary action. Each of those individuals will remain in their own sphere of influence to bring other people in the hospital systems and in the healthcare ecosystems into an alliance for the CIA-backed political group. The attorneys will exert influence on the other attorneys in the country, the national lawyers guilds in the country, the bar associations in the country, the courts in the country, to get them to support the political resistance group being backed by the CIA. The businessmen will keep being businessmen, but they will exert their influence to bring other captains of industry across the industrial sectors in the country or in their particular industry to align like a magnet in support for the CIA-backed resistance group. The teachers, and remember, we did like 5 office hours diatribes and like 2 streams on what Randy Weingarten, the head of the American Federation of Teachers, the largest teachers union in this country, was doing in Ukraine so many times. You guys remember all the streams we did on that and all the office hours we did on Randy Weingarten? Why is the head of the U.S. Teachers Union spending so much time in Ukraine?